Good evening, everybody. It's beautiful to be here with you tonight, even amongst all of the pain and turmoil that our country is going through. But actually, events like this, plus seeing the uprising across the country, really gives me hope that we're actually on the right path towards structural transformation and that we're actually really going to be able to live the dream that this country proposes to be founded on. So very, very grateful to be here tonight. Thank you so much. So I'm the co-founder and co-director of Down Home North Carolina. We were formed in June of 2017, but would love to be able to tell you a little bit about sort of how we got started. So if you want to go to the next slide. Oh, if you want to go one back. Great. So this is myself and my co-director prior to the start of Down Home North Carolina. Todd and I, we met in the late 2000s when we were both living in North Carolina, and we were working together on actually a statewide mobilization against Bank of America in 2011 in Charlotte. And we became fast friends because we had a lot of unity around where we felt that the country needed to go and what we wanted North Carolina to be and the South to be. And a lot of that was formed around the breaking of white supremacy and the ability for self-determination for communities of color and poor white communities. And when we sort of had been growing our friendship, 2015, there was the shooting in South Carolina with Dylan Roof. And at that point, myself and Todd were actually working outside of the state. And
yes. And I can't find control of it.
You want to, okay. And we started to begin to say to ourselves, we're seeing this rise of white supremacy. We're seeing something that literally is what we knew we were trying to build our lives around, ending white supremacy. And so we said, what can we start to do together? Then comes Trump. And these two photos here are actually different demonstrations that Todd and I were organizing across the country together to actually call attention to how Trump was stoking white supremacist organizing. And, so we were just doing everything we could. We were trying to put our bodies on the line to stop. But then come the election night, because we still thought that direct action was going to be the way to make this happen. But then come, election night, and I am in New York at this point, but Todd is back in North Carolina, and we're on signal, and we're watching the results come in. And by 3 a.m., literally, we knew the direction the country was going. And so he and I, in that moment, said, direct action is an amazing way. And as Black Lives Matter is showing us and has always shown us, that direct action really does get the goods. But we said to ourselves, we had to do something else to really build this multiracial democracy that we believe is the way forward and the way of the future. And so we decided at that point to form Down Home North Carolina, basically 3 a.m. on the day after the elections. Go to the next slide. So what is Down Home North Carolina? So we are a statewide grassroots member-led organization that's working to build power for poor and working class people across race in rural and small town North Carolina. This photo here was actually one of the most beautiful events that I feel like we've ever done in the shy of 3 years of our history. This was a event for the 2018 elections. The man in the front who is pushing his baby, he was a part of the Alamance 12. The Alamance 12 was basically in 2016, North Carolina tried to put in jail 12 people for voter fraud. 9 out of 12 were Black. This was clearly an attempt at basically voter intimidation for people of color. Keith, who's in the front, was actually someone who was basically had to go through trial to be able to show that there was no voter fraud. And here he is for the first time after getting out of jail, marching to the polls so that he could vote in the 2018 elections. And it was really beautiful. But That is what we're all about: member-led, grassroots, and building power in rural North Carolina. Next slide.
My screen is just a little slow. My apologies.
All good.
Oh, and let's go back to there.
There we go. So, you know, I think sometimes folks are like, well, you know, I kind of get what grassroots mean. I kind of get what member-led means, but like, we really just want to break it down for you. So really what member-led means is members decide what we do. They decide the issues we organize on at the local and statewide level. They determine who they want to vote for in elections. Down home is both a C3, a C4, and an IE PAC. We have always known that we need to be able to control the levers of government in order to have policy that really reflects the needs of the people who have been mostly impacted from a capitalist, racist, and patriarchal system, to be totally honest with you. And so our whole mission is to basically build the skills of our members to be able to run this organization. It is a vehicle for them. And who you see on this photo is a man named Gabe, and he's actually talking to folks what is called the race class narrative. Some of you may know about that, but this was when he was talking to voters around healthcare and talking about immigration and how some folks on the right were trying to stop the ability for universal health care by saying immigrants are taking it away and they don't deserve it. But we were really trying to intervene to say, actually, that is a tired message. Do not scapegoat immigrants. We can actually do health care for all. And we actually had some great results in that canvas, but that is down home in action. So where are we organizing? So right now we are in 5 counties. We are really a place-based organization. We believe that in order to change the state, there is no way that you cannot go through rural North Carolina, and you must build the leadership within those places in order to have that progressive path to power. So the 5 stars are, again, where we are. So I'm really bad at direction, so it's hard to basically point it out to you. The lone star in kind of the middle of the map, that's Alamance County. If you kind of go like slightly to your left, I'm bad with my left and my rights too, you get to Cabarrus County, which is basically like right outside of Charlotte. And then if you go all the way to the border in the mountains, we are in Madison, Haywood, and Jackson County. Todd and I actually started where I went to Haywood County. I moved in with my mother. She lives in Hendersonville. And I went over to Haywood and I started knocking on the doors by myself, and Todd went to Alamance and did the same thing. And so what we did, and kind of going back to the member-led piece, was that we just started with a survey. It was a survey that asked people 3 things. What are the issues that matter most to you? Who's responsible for those issues? And what are the solutions? And the top 3 issues that came out of them across the state were healthcare, jobs, and actually ending racism and prejudice. And so right now, our top 2 statewide issues are expanding Medicaid and raising the minimum wage. North Carolina did not expand Medicaid in 2013, and we are one of the other 19 states that have never raised their minimum wage since 10 years ago. So we're still at $7.25. And so those are our big statewide issues. And then locally, there are different ways that local issues emerge. And more in the mountains, those 3 stars towards the border between that and Georgia and Tennessee, we're mostly working on ending overdose, because the overdose crisis has really hit hard in Appalachia, as some of you may be aware of. So that is more the local issue cut there. And then in Alamance, we're talking about ending cash bail and fixing, or actually I should say it's building a more humane immigration system. And then Cabarrus is also looking at cash bail. And next. So our organizing principles, basically what this means is like, how do we bring people into a multiracial organization, right? We know that a lot of trust has been broken across white, Black, and brown communities. And white supremacy has made it so that we feel that there is more to do to fight each other than there actually is to unite and actually fight the real enemy, which is the precious few that actually have all the money and power. And so our organizing principles are really geared towards what it will take to build a multiracial organization that actually unites around fighting white supremacy and racialized capitalism. So basically everyone is welcome. We are a working class organization built for the leadership of working class folks across race. But again, we really do want to say that, like, if you are down with us, we are down with you. So you are home with Down Home North Carolina. And we will work to unlearn basically how we've been taught to distrust and harm one another. And that's explicitly trying to build anti-racist principles into our organizing philosophy and basically DNA of our organization. We really want to be able to ensure that how we build trust with each other is just speaking honestly and openly, and really not trying to censor ourselves and just hanging in the tough conversations. Next slide. So again, we must bring others into Down Home North Carolina. As a grassroots organization, we're only going to be able to survive by being able to recruit and build our power, because people power is really the engine of our organization. And then it's going to have to be us. Really, our 3 core strategies for Down Home is leadership development, which is basically that last bullet point there. It's going to have to be us. There's no one that's going to save us. We need to be able to really step in, because we actually have lived the issues that we're fighting for and can really be the people who can bring about transformational change. And that, like, we always say this, come on in, y'all, it's time to get to work. Like, we are definitely about family and connection, but we're really also about just, like, it is time to roll up your sleeves and get in it. And this photo here was actually really sweet. So this was during Black History Month in 2019, and Kenny Stills, who's a football player from Miami, and I'm forgetting his actual role in football because I'm not that good with sports, but Kenny Stills came out to Alamance, and this is a bus where we took him around Alamance and actually showed him sites of Black history. And Alamance has an incredibly rich and diverse history that you will hear from our fantastic next speaker, who is also the woman in the front right there. But that was a beautiful day. Next slide. So this is really our theory of change. This is how we win. Right here, we basically mobilized in 2019, again, since our big statewide issue is expanding Medicaid. There was a move made by the Speaker of the House, Tim Moore, who basically tried to take a vote to override the governor's veto on a budget because it did not include Medicaid expansion. And he tried to do it under this, like, really shady move. And Down Home mobilized the state with a rapid response vigil/rally. The woman in the front there drove basically, like, through the night, because she's in the mountains and that takes about 5 to 6 hours. But we did it so fast. She drove through the night to be able to lead this. She's our organizer in Haywood. Her name is Chelsea White. It was a very powerful day. But basically what we do is we come together. We discover our shared issues and struggles, because again, we do believe that across race, we have more in common than we do apart. And that by understanding that we have all had shared experiences, even though not to the same degree, but a lot of working class folks understand what it means to be without, that by discovering that we actually have more unity. So we build our skills and knowledge. This is leadership development. So every month we have a skills development training, whether it's from how to do a one-on-one to how to do a power analysis to how to call your legislator. We're always making sure that folks are building their skills to be able to advocate for themselves. Build our power, that's by basically getting people in, by recruiting, doing actions. We fight, we are not, if anything, we probably are always doing things and need to take a rest, but we are constantly mobilizing. And even in COVID, while things are really hard, we have transferred into car demonstrations. We have transferred into community call nights and, targeting our legislators virtually. So we are constantly in motion. And then we win. So far, what we've been able to win on an issue-based level, we won a living wage increase in Haywood County. That was back in 2018. We've been able to win a policy that is about reducing the qualifications for cash bail, meaning more people are able to get assistance and are eligible for release of bail in Alamance. We've been able to win, well, we've also won elections, which actually we'll go to next. So again, really for us, building power is both about building people power to build, wins on the issues that we fight for, but also we're really trying to change the government in North Carolina. From the local to the state level, we really want our folks who have really lived, this life of what it means to be working class and at the other end of the spectrum, having them being able to say, like, actually, this is what people need, and we want to put that into law. Like, that's really important for us, which is why we have a C4 and a PAC. So we've always engaged in elections. So in 2018, we were able to flip the supermajority in the North Carolina legislature, and Down Home contributed to that because we were able to flip one of the only rural counties that flipped, which was House District 119 in Jackson. That was our first electoral effort. We knocked on over 23,000 doors. And if you ever see some of the photos from that, if you see where we really work, it's pretty incredible. There's like an aerial shot of the mountains that we work in. And it's like, there's like one house on like the tip of a mountain, and then like another house, like, like basically the other, like it's like barely in the photo, because we really are working in some pretty tough terrain. Many of our canvassers, I mean, luckily everyone is safe, but like their cars spin out into ditches on the roads leading into the houses. You're crossing bridges, like literally on foot to get to a house because people live in like such expanse. But we're doing it because we actually know that like these folks have really been ignored by the Democratic Party. And they actually have been unignored by the Republican Party. One of the things that made me really start Down Home was my mother lives in Hendersonville, North Carolina, in the mountains. And Trump was the only campaign that knocked on our door. The Democrats never did. And my mom was she was just like, you've got to do this for me, in which, it's actually a big motivation for me. But anyway, that was really important. And so again, like we helped flip the supermajority. And then in 2019, we endorsed 7 candidates. We had 5 wins. So we flipped the balance of power in the city, basically council in Waynesville, which is a town in Haywood, one of ours. We were able to get in folks in the town council in Silva, and we were able to get the mayor in Alamance. But one of the photos you have outside of the Jackson Board of Elections, so that's actually, again, another, you'll meet Dreama in a second, but Carrie, who I knocked on her door in Jackson, Nicaraguan immigrant in a town of 2,000 people that is heavily white in Appalachia and in Silva. She decided to run for city council in 2019. And she is our tie, because basically what happened was she actually got enough votes to get in. There was 3 openings and she tied for 3rd, but she lost on a coin toss. And so there's a photo of our folks that basically showed up for her coin toss. There were over 50 Down Home members in the mountains that showed up. And it does suck that it came down to a coin toss and that democracy still works like that. But we still feel very proud, and she is not done fighting. And you will hear more from Carrie in the next election. So, North Carolina, like Renee was saying, this is, as y'all know, it's a real bellwether state. We are really, as, North Carolina goes the country. So we are, top 4, people look at us around the presidential. We clearly were able to flip the U.S. Senate because of the seat that we have up with Tom Tillis. So there's federal implications for North Carolina. There's also at the state level. So, how Virginia went in 2019 is really what we're hoping for North Carolina in 2020 at the state level, where we're able to keep our governor, who is Democrat. which is Governor Cooper, but then we can flip the House and the Senate. We are very close. We are within 5 and 6 seats respectively on the state House and the state Senate, which would allow us to go all blue. And the reality is a lot of the pickup seats in 2018 that got us to even break the supermajority were in the cities. So most of the seats that we need to actually flip the state are in rural counties. And so we are uniquely poised in 2020 to help with the state legislature. We are fighting in 6 state House races, and you only need 6 to flip the state. So we are really doing our best to really create a state government that is working for working class folks across race. But also, we also know that not only are we thinking about this year, but really who takes the state will determine, you know, the redistricting for the next 10 years. And so this really has long-term implications. So I'm happy to take any questions. I'm sorry I've not been able to really watch the chat. But did just want to be able to show a couple more photos of the work that we do. This is Alamance. That is us supporting the teachers.
Yep, there we go. Maybe just start with one question while my computer and my internet ramps up. From Maureen Parton, how do you convince a conservative Trump supporter to change his or her mind and vote? Do you even try to do that?
So we actually do. And Trump voters, that's a little bit more black and white. So there are persuadable Trump voters. You know, some of it can get kind of like how you look at the data, and we actually do look at the data to look at, you know, some people voted Trump after, you know, voting for Democrats years before, but they flipped, and they are therefore people that we can be talking to. You know, if someone has basically voted a certain way for a long period of time, that's going to be hard. But some folks either didn't vote in 2016 or flipped in 2016 that they didn't flip previously. And those are the people that we target. And a lot of what we do is just called deep canvassing. A lot of it was door work. It was just like talking to them and literally just trying to listen without judgment around what they were experiencing. And now we've basically been able to go to phones and doing deep canvassing by phones. And then really trying to sort of, you know, show them that we understand why they're angry and that there is a different way in engaging in politics that actually is probably more akin to what they want to see. And we have had some success. So this, yeah, some of the photos are going right now. We love the young folks. The woman on the left here, Hannah, she spoke at a Raising Wages town hall. She again drove from Jackson, North Carolina into Raleigh, which is about 6 hours from where she was, and talking about how she needs that. There is Dreama. This was our recent thank you caravan to a judge that helped expand that cash bail policy that I was talking to you about. We had about 30 cars there about 3 weeks ago. That's Karen McBain. That is our member who ran for city council in Silva. This right here is, we really are about building Black, white, and brown power. And that was mi gente, and we were working on Dreama's race. Again, the issues that we're working on in the mountains is around ending the overdose crisis. So we took members to DC to talk about ending the drug war. This was in the 2018 elections. This is our race class canvassing crew about to go out on the doors that was talking about healthcare and immigration. And just, this is a health, again, we do a ton of healthcare actions and couldn't be more proud. This was ending 287G, which is an anti-immigration policy in Alamance. We have a sheriff that calls immigrants taco eaters and have been demonstrating against him for basically the start of our organization.
Let's see, we do have a few minutes for some questions. Renee, did you have any that you were thinking of off the top of your head, or can I take some from the chat? Oh, here's one actually. Oh, Renee, you're on mute, but here's one actually. Susan Stanger, please talk about recent history in North Carolina politics. I read a while ago that a rich dude had strong influence in North Carolina politics and had locked it down for pubs for a while. I think that two people asked a similar question.
Mm-hmm. So I bet the rich dude, maybe Art Pope. And he was the architect of, basically in 2010, there was a Republican takeover at the State House where not since Reconstruction did you have a Republican controlled State House. But because Art Pope's money in politics, in 2010, that's where you had this wave happen where we had basically a Republican controlled legislature. And yes, I mean, we're still battling that, but what we've been able to see is really through efforts that are about both doing electoral reform by extending early voting, by basically really fighting voter ID, these other, systemic obstructions to voting with people of color. We've been able to pass that since 2010. And I think that's really been able to allow us to do things like elect a Democratic governor, like Roy Cooper in 2016, like being able to break the House supermajority in 2018. And like you'll see in 2020, we will break both chambers. I really believe that. We got to keep fighting, but the ability to really fight back on some of these very restrictive these anti-democratic measures, plus being able to fight the racist maps that we've had to deal with since 2010, because that was the last time redistricting happened. And so when the Republicans took control of both chambers, they were able to manage redistricting, and which is why you've seen that surgical precision that is talked about around North Carolina maps and how racially motivated they are to basically take away power from Black and brown voting. But again, those have been challenged, so we've been able to make some successes.
That's great. That is fantastic, Brigid. I can't even begin to say how amazing you guys are. And I would love to ask more questions, but we got to move on, and Renee's going to do the next section. But while Renee is talking here, maybe Brigid, if you want to look at chat and see some of the questions, if you want to type in some answers there, it'd be great. Go ahead, Renee.
Okay, so I think what Down Home is doing right now is exactly why Airlift has been working so tirelessly to raise funds for groups like this. I mean, I think the timing couldn't be more relevant. And yes, I volunteer full-time for Airlift, but I'm also personally an Airlift contributor. And I'd like to really talk to people about how important it is to be supporting groups like this right now. And so I will personally be doing a pledge of $5,000 for Down Home, a matching pledge. So I hope that other people on this call are equally inspired. And just to make it clear, because this is not an Airlift donation, we do give every month to Down Home, but this is a personal donation by me and my husband, and hopefully you're inspired to give generously as well. And we thank everyone, no matter how small or how large you donate to Airlift. Just know that every dollar is used so impactfully, and you really are getting the most return for your donation investment.
I just want to say, I think some people do know how to use the scan code that's up on your screen, but in case you don't know, all you have to do is, if you have a smartphone, turn on your camera and aim it towards that scan code as if you're going to take a picture. Don't take a picture, just aim it there. And what will happen is this bar will come up at the top of your screen, and then you just touch that with your finger, and there's the page so you can send a donation. It's so easy. Or you can do the other by check as well. All right. Brigid, thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on. And if you have a few more minutes, you can ask some questions. And then if anybody, we'll look through some of the questions, and maybe Renee can answer some of them too, I'm not sure. But I'm going to move us along to the second part of our meeting.
Eileen?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, so Brigid does have to sign off from this meeting because she cannot be on the call at the same time a candidate from the area is. So I'd like to give Brigid a moment to be able to say goodbye before she signs off.
And, oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. MBCAN always pays our speakers through a donation to their organization. So MBCAN will be sending a donation to Down Home of $300, and I personally will match that.
Well, I just want to say thank you, y'all, and really, the woman who is coming up after this, to me, is really the hope that we have for the future. And I will say I wasn't able to get into the racial politics of Alamance County, but a little bit of history before she comes on. We chose our counties for 4 reasons, one of which was the active organizing around white supremacy. We actually wanted to be able to go into places where we knew that white nationalists, neo-Confederates were organizing, because that's what we thought we were up against with basically the election of Trump. And Dreama Caldwell is an African-American woman born and raised in Alamance County, running for county commissioner when she has come up against a lot of odds. And actually her safety is at risk because these people don't want her to get elected. But she will make great change in our county. And if anything is telling us about this moment, we need to follow the leadership of Black women, and particularly Black women in the South, who will basically lead this country into a better place. So thank you so much. And I just much love to y'all, and talk to you soon.
Love you too, Brigid. Thank you. So our next speaker, as Brigid eloquently introduced her, is Dreama Caldwell, who is running for county commissioner. I just want to say personally, I'm extremely excited. This is what the moment calls for everyone in Mill Valley. This is where you can direct your lipstick money and your hair color money, but I won't speak any further. I would like to introduce Dreama Caldwell. And what I'd like to do is see if I can, I'm going to turn off the share and see if I can get Dreama on the, if everyone could click speaker view, and you can see Dreama.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Dreama.
Hi. Hope you guys are having a good afternoon.
We are. We hope you are too.
I've been on skates all day. I've been to 2 protests today, and so back in now for this call.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I guess I'll just start, just a couple questions to start you off. I know that one of your main, the biggest goal that you want is to end cash bail. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with cash bail?
So a little bit about my experience is actually what led me to Down Home. For 20 years, I've managed childcare centers and had a supervision error occur at one of my childcare centers. I was the administrator at. My employee left a child on the bus by themselves, and according to police, my fault is I did not call the police. And so I also received a warrant. I also was charged, and I actually took a plea deal just to accept responsibility, to get the situation and move on. Throughout that process, I was given a $40,000 bail when I was served my warrant, and I realized something was wrong because my co-defendants were allowed to sign themselves out of jail, and they were just a couple of counties away. And so when I went through that situation, found out getting an attorney, a reasonable attorney, would have cost me about $21,000. I did not have. My sister had taken money out of her 401k to get me out of jail. And so I never knew that cash bail was a problem, honestly, until it affected myself. And thinking that if it affected me that way, there had to be other people feeling that way. And so I started looking for organizations that was just fighting in this way. And so I come across an ad on Facebook, and it was from down home, and it was just like, are you looking to make a change? Are you looking for a group? Are you? And it was like, yes, yes, yes. I needed all those things. And I was at a point in my life where I wanted to, it was very important to me to build and work multicultural. I understanding this wasn't just a Black or a white thing. It required all of us to fight. And so I met with the organizer at Down Home, and I got into Down Home, specifically kind of stayed in the lane of stop criminalizing the poor and work with them. We were talking about the need for bail fund. We were watching other cities have it, but yet we were a rural area and we weren't sure how we could do that. And so we began to have meetings and talk about that. And so we gave birth to the Alamance County Bail Fund. And I've recently found out from Vera Justice, we're the only bail fund in rural, United States. So that kind of is my history of what led me to get there.
Tell us a little about like when you first met up with the people in Down Home, and then what made you say, I'm going to run for county commissioner?
Well, so when I first met up with Down Home, I was reserved. There has been a lot of work done here to keep people apart. There's a lot of psychological work. There were a lot of trust issues that I had to just say, let's give this a chance. And so I kind of began to attend the meetings and kind of learned that people's heart was in the right place. That doesn't mean that always we say the right things, we do the right things, but Down Home was that space that we agreed to give each other the forgiveness of I'm going to listen to you, you're going to listen to me, and whether you're right or you're wrong or you're whatever, we're going to listen to each other and give each other. We say that we're a space that we're going to learn new things, but we're also going to unlearn things, and giving each other that space of that. And we've had some really seriously talks that we've had to have. There were things that people didn't know. They were saying things just traditionally, doing things, didn't realize they were offensive to, people of another race. And so that was the first time that I was able to say, that offends me, and it not be like, oh, you're just playing the race card, or you're ignored, or and then we were able to have more conversations about why that offended me. And so that is what I now call them, my soul tribe, because I feel like Down Home is my soul tribe, in a place where we're not only fighting each other, fighting for change, but we're also, there's change going on within the organization constantly. Who we were 2 years ago, we've grown so much more than that now as a group.
So how, what county commissioner, how did that come about? You wanting to run?
So I think that there's a part of me prior to life happening, racism happening. It's like a little girl dream. I was involved in student government. I've always been a community organizer in one way or another. And so I wanted to run for office, go to law school. And I thought, when I got arrested, all that stuff wasn't possible. There wasn't a candidate that was coming from having a record and from having a place. And so going into Down Home and realizing, so they were able to break down almost like a civics lesson where I understood what local government, how important local government was. We always think big and we think national government and the president, but what Down Home did was broke down what really the county commissioner does, what the city commissioner does, what the city manager does. And I understood those things. And so I realized somewhere, like, it doesn't matter how much we march, how much we protest, how much we write letters until we can get somebody on the inside. And so whenever they talked to me about it, it was like it was confirming what was already in my soul, but I had let life happen and just thought it wasn't possible. So now seeing that down home, when we talked about it, would be behind me, that, you know, I wouldn't be out there by myself, you know. And then I don't know, it's just, there's no real way to create change if you don't get somebody on the inside with the people. And so I realized that. And then when I realized that there had never been an African-American female to do this, the last African-American to sit on the county commissioner was in 1972. And so when I realized that, I was like, okay, yeah, it's time. And for me, it's about busting that door open so other people can come behind me.
Oh my gosh, Dreama, that is, thank you so much. And I mean, this time right now, it's a perfect storm for you, yeah, and for us here, you know, to connect to the most important thing. I think everybody on this call, what we know, we totally connect with that. It's the local politics that really help people of color, and to get Black people on the county commissioner and doing that work, it really will make a difference. And so I want to just drum up everybody's heart and soul. This is what we want to do at the marches that the protests here in Mill Valley, Dreama, in San Francisco, and you know, you've been to protests. I've been to 6 protests the last week.
Yeah.
This people, yeah. People really, this is what we need to do. And even, I don't care you're in North Carolina, you are the person that we want to support, that I'm telling you that we want to support, because I know from all my heart. So I would like to, I'm going to share the screen, but I want, it would be really nice if everybody open up your chat and just give support to Dreama. I'm going to bring up the donation screen. And I know we all just asked you to donate to Down Home, but people just open up your, you know, just $1 or $10 or 20, whatever it is, and just write it in this chat screen, and let's get it, let's just talk and give, even if it's $1, Dreama will see the people and supporting her from California, me included. So let me go and my screen.
And I was going to say, my website is secondchancealamance.com, and you can donate on there. And honestly, it is the hardest part for a candidate of color, is raising money.